George Harmon had one rule he lived by his entire life. He said that a man who cannot be trusted with small things will never be trusted with large ones. He had built his lumber supply company in Portland, Oregon on that principle alone. He shook hands before he signed contracts. He paid employees before he paid himself. And he trusted his attorney of 22 years with every financial decision he had ever made. That attorney betrayed him, and so did his son. George Harmon was 73 years old when his doctors told him the cancer was terminal. He had built Harmon Lumber Supply from a single warehouse into a regional operation worth $18 million. He had 2 children. Dale was 46, the older one, charming in the way that people who need something from you often are. Lisa was 42, quieter, steadier, the one who had moved back to Portland 4 years earlier when George's health began to decline. Lisa had reorganized her entire life around her father. She managed his medical appointments, coordinated with his care team, and sat with him through the long evenings when the pain made sleep impossible. George told her often that he did not know what he would do without her. He told his attorney the same thing. His attorney was a man named Warren Caldwell. He had handled George's legal affairs since 1999. George trusted him completely. That trust had been built over 2 decades of competent, reliable service. It had never once been tested. Dale Harmon had been tested many times. He had borrowed $200,000 from his father in 2014 to fund a real estate venture in Seattle that failed within 18 months. He had borrowed another $85,000 in 2017 for reasons he never fully explained. George had forgiven both debts quietly, without telling Lisa, because that was the kind of father he was. What George did not know was that Dale had been speaking privately with Warren Caldwell for months. In the spring of 2021, while George was undergoing chemotherapy at Oregon Health and Science University, Dale met with Warren Caldwell 3 times at a restaurant in Northwest Portland. No notes were taken. No billing records were filed for those meetings, but money moved. A wire transfer of $180,000 from Dale's personal account to an LLC connected to Warren Caldwell's wife was executed on April 7, 2021. 12 days later, Warren Caldwell presented George Harmon with a revised estate document for signature. He told George it was a routine update to reflect current asset valuations. George was exhausted from his most recent treatment. He trusted Warren completely. He signed without reading it carefully. The revised document restructured the estate entirely. Dale would receive the business, the primary residence, and 80% of all liquid assets. Lisa would receive a single savings account containing $340,000. The original will, which George had filed in 2018, had divided everything equally between both children. George Harmon passed away on September 14, 2021. He never knew what he had signed. Lisa discovered the truth 3 weeks after the funeral. She sat across from Warren Caldwell in his office as he walked her through the estate distribution. When he reached the part about the business, she stopped him. She asked him to show her the document. She read it twice. Then she asked him when her father had signed it. He told her April of that year. She remembered April clearly. Her father had been so ill that month, he had barely been able to leave the bed. She asked Warren Caldwell one more question. She asked him if her father had understood what he was signing. Warren told her George had been perfectly lucid. He said it with the practiced calm of a man who had prepared that answer in advance. Lisa walked out of his office and called an attorney before she reached her car. Her attorney was a woman named Catherine Reeves, a probate litigator in Portland, with 17 years of experience and a reputation for cases that other lawyers considered too complicated. When Lisa laid out the timeline, Catherine asked for one thing immediately. She asked for George Harmon's complete medical records from April 2021. What those records showed stopped Catherine mid-sentence. On the day George had signed the revised document, his oncologist had documented in his chart that George was experiencing significant cognitive side effects from his chemotherapy protocol. The attending physician had noted that George had been unable to recall the day of the week or the names of his medications during that morning's evaluation. The medical record was time-stamped 4 hours before Warren Caldwell had arrived at the house with the document. Catherine filed a will contest in Multnomah County Circuit Court and simultaneously filed a complaint with the Oregon State Bar against Warren Caldwell. A forensic accountant was retained to trace the financial relationship between Dale Harmon and Warren Caldwell. Within 3 weeks, she had identified the $180,000 wire transfer, 2 additional payments totaling $64,000, and a pattern of communications between Dale and Warren's personal email accounts that had begun 8 months before George's death. The hearing was held before the Honorable Judge Patricia Nguyen at the Multnomah County Courthouse in Portland. Catherine Reeves presented the medical records, the forensic financial analysis, and the email communications. Dale's attorney, a civil litigator named Robert Sims, argued that the revised will reflected George's genuine wishes and that the financial transactions between Dale and Warren were unrelated personal matters. Judge Nguyen allowed Catherine to call Warren Caldwell to the stand. Warren had retained his own separate counsel by that point, which told the court everything it needed to know. He answered questions carefully, qualifying every statement, offering nothing beyond what was directly asked. Catherine showed him the wire transfer records. She showed him the email chain. She showed him the medical chart from the morning of the signing. Then she asked him one question. She asked him whether, as the attorney responsible for ensuring his client's informed consent, he had reviewed George Harmon's medical status before presenting him with a document that restructured an $18 million estate. Warren Caldwell looked at his attorney. His attorney gave no visible response. Warren looked back at Catherine and said nothing for a very long time. Judge Patricia Nguyen ruled the revised will invalid in its entirety. She found that George Harmon had lacked the cognitive capacity to provide informed consent on the day of signing, and that the financial relationship between Dale Harmon and Warren Caldwell constituted an undeniable conflict of interest that had corrupted the integrity of the document. She ordered the estate distributed according to the original 2018 will, dividing everything equally between Lisa and Dale. She referred Warren Caldwell to the Oregon State Bar for disciplinary proceedings and referred both Dale and Warren to the Multnomah County District Attorney for criminal investigation. Warren Caldwell surrendered his law license 4 months later as part of a negotiated resolution. Dale Harmon was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit probate fraud. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 4 years of supervised probation and ordered to repay $444,000 in legal fees and damages. Lisa Harmon kept her half of the business. She promoted the warehouse manager, who had worked for her father for 19 years, to operations director, and kept every employee her father had hired. She had her father's original 2018 will framed and hung it in the office he had built, not as a reminder of what she had fought for, as a reminder of what he had always intended. George Harmon spent his entire life trusting the right people. In the end, the people he trusted most let him down. But the daughter who sat beside him through every difficult night made sure his final wishes meant something. Some people spend their lives building something worth protecting. If this story moved you, subscribe to Justice Journals for more true crime courtroom stories every week. And tell us in the comments, do you think Warren Caldwell deserved a harsher sentence?